Welcome to Pondering Pandas, a podcast where we ponder about the confusing modern world and try to make sense of it all. We are your host. My name is Jayden.
My name is Ryan.
Hello, Ryan. What our topic today?
So today we're going to talk about Western Asian foods. I think it's quite confusing idea. Do you want to describe the name?
Let's just break it down. Like Western meaning in my perspective is nothing Asian. So I guess it's
Hmm.
more whitewashed. Excuse my French.
You're
and
being very
then and
polite here.
then I'm being too polite. And then more Chinese, or at least in my case, it would be more like Chinese food. So, and then Asian wise, I think it would just be something that is Asian tasting, but more acceptable in the Western culture. And so then our people could profit from it, right? So then we can make money in the foreign land. So
Yeah.
I think it's a very fascinating cultural exchange because, there's so much immigration from the east to the west. It doesn't matter what country, whether it's
Hmm.
Europe or North
Hmm.
America, there has to be certain ways for our ancestors to make money and survive, right?
Hmm.
And when you're trying to cater that huge population that is not authentically Asian from whatever
Hmm.
parts of the country you're from, you want to be able to make it for an audience that they are able to accept
Hmm.
and feel that it tastes good. So it can't be anything crazy, like, I don't know,
Yeah.
and intestinal stuff to that would be quite normal in Asian countries, right? But like for Western cultures, it's not something that they are used to seeing. They don't even
Hmm.
like looking at feet, okay? So let's just not even consider, in internal stuff. But
Yeah, the
I
organs
think
and
a
stuff,
really
right? Yeah.
exactly. So
Yeah.
I think the interesting part for me is, how do you describe Western food, and then
Hmm.
how do you describe Asian food?
Yeah, that's a great question. I agree with you on many of the descriptions you put there regarding Western Asian food supposed to mean like something brought up by the Asian immigrants to the Western land. And it has
Mhm.
some optimizations to make sure they can cater to the population they're serving to and to make sure they can survive. When it comes to the Chinese food or Asian food versus the Western food, I feel like it's more like traditional ones that you consume in their authentic or original lands. So basically, when I'm describing Western food, I would be more like, oh, this is how people, for example, in Europe, have been cooking this dish for hundreds of years. I know there's many of the fusions, whatever, but traditionally people will see, oh, maybe foie gras was originally from French, like all those
Mm,
different dishes you may consider. And also, North America maybe prefer the steaks because they have the tradition of this. So,
yeah.
and also Asian people, if you ask me for the Chinese food, I will probably introduce you some of my local dishes. I feel like, oh, those are my traditional dishes. Maybe
Mm.
chicken feet, as you described. So
Yum.
we
Yum,
have
yum,
been
yum, yum, yum.
consuming, we have been consuming for a long time. So yeah, my original like description or my distinction of those notions are based on the authenticity in a way, I would
Mm.
say. But I know like food is always evolving and have fusions, so I don't think we will have a very clear boundary to any of them.
Absolutely. This question, it kind of brings me back to one of the very first time, excuse my French, white people food in a restaurant. And I just thought the presentation in a restaurant was quite
Mm.
different because you have a main dish, right? You know exactly what that thing is. It's like a
Yeah.
piece of meat, and then you
Hmm.
have some sort of salad, and then you
Hmm.
have some sort of starch slash carb, right? It's usually potatoes. So I guess, like, let's just take a steak dinner, for example. You have like a piece of steak meat, and
Hmm.
Most of the time, it doesn't really have anything else on it. It could have, like, a sauce, it could have, like, some onions on top, but, like, it's not like a
Yeah,
stir fry, right?
yeah,
So it's,
yeah.
like, just, like, one simple ingredient, and then salad is, like, a mix of raw vegetables, and
Mhm,
then and then you have, one thing, but it's, like, one plate, one person, and people don't usually touch your food. And then
mhm.
in authentic Asian food, from what I've experienced so far, most of them, um, it's about sharing around with the table, right? Like you have
Exactly.
many different dishes of stir fries, it could be deep fried things, it could be very many different finger foods or whatever, but like it's always shared, put it in the center of the table. Compared to
Mhm.
Western people, like each individual person will have a plate in front of them, right? So it's like
Yeah.
you have your food, I have mine, don't touch your plate, don't touch my plate kind of thing. So I think that is the huge difference in terms of the dining experience. The taste of it is quite different. It's very it's very plain in a way that you're gonna eat what you're expecting to eat, I think.
You
Does
mean
that
the
make
Western
sense?
food?
In
You mean the
Yeah,
Western
yeah,
food?
yeah. In the
Ah, I
Western
see
food,
what you mean.
it's
Yeah.
not very the flavors are not very complex, um, at least in my opinion. It can be very complex, but most of the time, like a basic, like a turkey dinner or even a steak dinner, like each individual thing is like a meat with a cranberry sauce with a gravy. I'm like, okay, like you know exactly how to what that's supposed to taste like. But whereas a authentic stir fry or some sort of authentic food, Asian food, the taste can be quite complex
Mhm,
in terms of, the umami, the types of sauces that they use. So, having worked in a Chinese restaurant before, like seeing the amount of preparation goes
mhm.
into one dish is mind blowing.
I'm actually curious how much preparation you need to make for a dish people will be familiar with, like kung pao chicken. I'm really curious because I never worked with a restaurant before.
I think kung pao chicken is a interesting dish where I haven't actually had it until I moved to Canada. So,
Yeah, yeah, me too. It's a
yeah,
by
and
the
then
way, for the audience, it's definitely a Western Asian food. It's one of
yeah,
the things that being invented here in the West, I think. Yeah.
and then I think almost every restaurant does it differently, especially in the ingredients part. So it depends on like where you go. The way that we did it is like diced celeries, diced carrots, diced white onions, and
Wow.
then we would do some sort of oh, sometimes it would have like chestnuts
Mhm.
into the stir fry, so it makes it more crunchy. And then we would have like chopped up diced chicken, and then we would stir fry it with like oil, garlic, and some sort of spicy paste to make it a little bit spicy. When we talk about spicy,
Mhm.
it's just not the same, right? It's a
Yeah.
little bit of heat for those who think milk is spicy, then you will think kung pao chicken will be very spicy. But for me, it will be like, okay, this is nothing.
Yeah, it's a
So
hint of flavor, right? Yeah, that makes sense.
yeah. So and then also there's this thing called make shit good, MSG, usually get put in there.
This is a controversial one. Like, I really want to learn your opinion, but yeah, continue,
No,
please.
I stole this from TikTok, but MSG is fantastic. It makes all our Asian food really, really yummy, but makes us very thirsty. But anyways, the whole entire premise of authentic I'm just going to talk about Chinese food because I know Chinese food the most. So
Yeah,
authentic Chinese
me
food,
too.
especially in Cantonese like Hong Kong and Guangzhou,
Mhm.
those type of Chinese food in Western culture would be more considered Cantonese type of Chinese food for
Mhm.
the most part. The foundation of Western Chinese food is Cantonese food.
You actually raise a very interesting point here, and I totally agree that because I'm not growing being familiar with the Cantonese food, and
But what would you be considered as?
I'm from like mainland China. My part is closer to Shanghai, so I'm closer to the Shanghai food and flavors and everything. So that's
Ah,
not the same as Canton food. And
mm,
we have some exposures, but that's not our daily experiences for sure.
mm,
So when I first came here in North American, I just realized almost all the Chinese restaurants here are Cantonese food. That's not something I'm familiar with. And
mm,
also, additional to that, many of them are serving like Western Asian food. So which
mhm.
it has another layer of the optimization or innovations on top of the original dishes. So that's
Yeah,
something I really like. What's this? Like what's going on here? But I feel like that's why it's a very interesting topic to discover because for many of the Asian people, especially if you are, I mean, Chinese people, if you are non Canton, it will be a very interesting experience for you to see all the new dishes like kung pao chicken, like the General Tso's chicken, whatever, chop suey. You wondering to self like, what's those and why they're so different?
yeah. Because when I think about Western Chinese food, and since I've worked in a Chinese restaurant, we have a separate menu
Oh,
for
really?
yeah, we have
Oh,
a separate menu or even just like a special section
authentic
uh,
flavors.
for non-authentic flavors.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Okay, so let me just tell you what those dishes would relatively include. It would be some sort of chow mein, right? It would
Oh, yeah.
be AKA stir-fried noodles. And then it could be a fried rice or white rice. And then there has to be some sort of like deep fried portion in there, like a deep fried
Mhm.
prawns, a sweet and sour pork,
Sauces. Yeah.
some sort of sauce with some sort of deep fried meat. Okay. And
Mhm.
then there is always some sort of stir fry, which is like could be like a mixed vegetable with some sort of like a meat sprinkled on it. It could be like beef and broccoli, chop suey, kung pao
Mhm.
chicken, general tao chicken. And don't get me wrong, it actually tastes pretty good.
Yeah, I agree. I
At least for
agree.
me.
Yeah.
Yeah, we would have these combos.
Is that racist? No, I'm joking.
What's racist?
No, like, what is that combo racist? Like, only catering to like Western audience?
Well, they're the only people that would order it usually. So I
Yeah,
guess for us, it would be a stereotype.
yeah, I'm just joking. I feel like it's good that you're having options catering to the audience can consume and they like it. I think that's really good. It's called
We gotta
the
capitalize on something.
great marketing, I would say. I do see the challenges because we tend to like share everything in place and also we just sell food in dishes. So I think it's very challenging for people with small groups to eat in the restaurant if you're not offering like the combo you just mentioned, like the
Yeah.
chow mein and also with some like additional dishes. So that's why I feel like yeah, it's a great strategy for sure.
Yeah, because it would kind of relate to what Western food looked like, right? Because you would have your own plate,
Yeah, exactly.
whereas authentic Asian food would just be a shared portion of
Yeah.
a la carte.
I cannot imagine a group of one or two can finish four dishes. I think it's too much for two people. But usually, when you go to a restaurant, you always want to order like four dishes or even more to be able to see, like, oh, I taste something today differently. Because it's a big portion dish and it was a good mix of all the things. So that's why I feel like that's a great innovation.
Speaking of innovation, have you ever had the Chinese fast food like Panda Express?
I have. I feel like this is very controversial as well in the Asian group because many people will say, oh, they're serving like Western Asian food or Western Chinese food, and we don't like it. They say it's nothing like what we are being familiar, and we don't do this in our home, and it's never something we know. But I
Mm.
personally quite like it. It's not something I'm familiar with, but if you're treating this as a new dish, you started to grow some liking to it, like how accepting like McDonald's or other names for sure.
Yeah, like what is your attitude towards this type of westernized food? Because there is deep fried food in authentic Asian food, right? So it's
Yeah.
just a different type of sauce and flavoring. It's not necessarily umami flavored. It's more or less like sweet and sour or some sort of fruitiness
Hmm.
to it, if that makes sense. For
Yeah,
example, like lemon chicken, like we don't do lemon chicken if you go to.
it's definitely new combination of the flavors when you taste those foods, like the orange chicken or lemon chicken, and also some sweet sour, deep fry combinations. It's definitely not a dominant type, or it's not
Yeah.
the everyday food you are ordering in the restaurant or you will make at home. So
Hmm.
when we make like everyday meals at home, we tend to do
Hmm.
some stir fries and also to have some fishes steamed or like cook with soy sauces. But again, if you're treating this as a McDonald's or or a fast food like a new dish, I think
Yeah.
it's quite good. And also, they really have some like healthier options, as you mentioned, like the broccoli beef. So I think it's totally fine for me.
The really interesting part about the Western Chinese food when I first started working there is the preparation for Westernized Chinese food versus our authentic menu is very different because the
Hmm.
preparation of giving our chef to cook versus the authentic ones, like the steps are relatively the same, but the
Mm.
ingredients are a little bit more potentially more complex. So
Ah.
like the Western Asian food, we would prepare like bigger buckets of chopped vegetables and mix
Mhm.
them together. Whereas the authentic ones, we would separate a lot of the ingredients into one ingredient at a time and then mix them together to give to the chef to cook.
So that's interesting. So what's the key difference between those two approaches?
The key difference is it's a lot quicker in the Western Chinese food preparation. So
Mhm.
like you can chop all the vegetables in like one big bucket and mix it all in one big bucket, and then if the order comes in, for example like chicken chop suey, then you just go to the big bucket, grab your mixed vegetable, and then grab the chicken and then give it to the chef. So if
Mhm.
you're gonna go to get an authentic dish, for example ginger onion beef,
Okay.
you go to the ginger and then you go to the onion and then you go to the beef. Like there's
I
more
see what
steps to it. Do you know what I mean? It's like
Mhm.
individual ingredient per dish versus like, okay, it's this plus that and that's it. It's
Mhm.
more simple for the Western one.
In this case, I'm just wondering, like, is that because the Western Asian food have stronger flavors and sauces, but authentic Chinese food because it's lighter and have less strong flavors. So if you don't cook in order, you will disrupt the flavor and presentations in general.
I think it's just very subjective in terms of like which one has a better flavor. So because chop suey would the base would probably just have a little bit of garlic with oil, and then you add in the chop suey, the mixed vegetables, aka, and then
Mhm.
you add in the meat, and then you stir fry it. Add in the starch a little bit to thicken the sauce, and then you plate it, and that's it.
Mhm.
Whereas ginger onion would be you fry the beef a little bit to make it like chewy, and
Mhm.
then you put in hot oil, and then you put in the ginger and the onion and then the green onions to stir fry first and then doing the beef after. So like there's more steps and more ingredients. Like there's also oyster sauce, soy sauce, there's also MSGs, salt, chicken bouillon, and all that stuff, right? To go into a ginger onion beef dish.
Hmm. I think that makes a lot of sense. It's a great learning for me as well because I never know how actually the restaurant works behind the scene and how they cater to different groups. I think that's great insight. So my assumption is that Western Asian foods are much more popular, right? In your
Uh,
restaurant and in the Chinese restaurant in general.
Not necessarily. I think it just depends who's walking in the door. So it depends on the population of the city. So if there's more Asians in the city, mm, you might
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
not
Of
care
course.
about doing westernized Chinese food.
You mentioned about the package before, about chow mein and the two
Combo?
additional, yeah, the combo. Yeah, you mentioned about the
Mhm.
combo.
Okay.
Is it more likely for a Western consumer to your restaurant
To
and
order?
order the combo than
Oh,
like
I see.
ordering the separate dishes? Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yes. It would be 99% of the time would be a Western person ordering a combo.
Yep.
Usually,
Exactly.
yeah.
Which
They are
means
very cheap. I mean, at least the restaurant that I was working at, it was very cheap comparatively to other things. But
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
I think that's a great point to raise. All the jokes aside, I think it also depends on the positioning of the restaurant and also the price tag of those
Mhm,
restaurants, the acceptance regarding the menu you may have as
mhm.
well. I do see in some fine dining settings, they're offering like more authentic Chinese food, and I feel like the audience are very receptive from the Western audience as well. They are ordering like the authentic ones and more non like Western Asian foods. I see a lot of the dim sum is being ordered, and they enjoy it
Yeah,
pretty much. And
yeah.
I
And
do
that's more
believe,
Cantonese food, right?
yeah. So that's another thing I want to mention. I didn't mention earlier is that we didn't have dim sum. Like we do have some like xiaolongbao, whatever, in near the Shanghai like area, but we don't have dim sum really in a way.
What?
I mean, like we have like the bao and the
Okay.
xiaolongbao, and those like are part of us. But the dim sum is really more Canton food, and it's also a
Oh.
culture. It's like I think only in the Canton area you will go to a restaurant in the lunch or the daytime just to
Mhm.
order dim sum and have some tea with some friends or family. So it's a tradition that
Oh,
comes from the Canton area. We didn't really have that.
okay. So,
So
hold on. So dim sum
yeah,
originates in Canton. I know that. But at the same time, the way that we eat dim sum is during breakfast and brunch
yeah,
hours.
yeah, exactly.
So what do you guys eat traditionally?
Traditionally, I think for the breakfast, we will have some congee and have some youtiao. I'm not sure how to translate
Chinese
that.
donuts.
Yeah, okay, Chinese donuts, and it's oily and it's like donuts, but it's not sweet. I know.
Yeah, it's savory.
Yeah, so we just
Mhm.
com combo with the congee as a combination of the balance of flavor, and also we do have bao for the breakfast, or even wonton and dumplings for breakfast sometimes as well. And of course,
Okay, so
like
we
we
have all that as well. So tell me
yeah,
something different. Like we have all that too.
yeah, but we don't have anything else. So that's the tradition. So we don't really have like dim
Oh.
sum. We don't have a list of other items like the chicken feet you eat there. And also some like
You
the
guys don't have
beef.
chicken feet?
No, we have chicken feet, but it's in a different presentation and delivery. It's not
Oh.
the ones you consume in the Canton restaurant as part of the dim sum dish. That's
So it's
different.
not red.
It's not red. Uh,
What color is
it's
it?
it would be more like a marinated dish by the soy sauce, so
Um,
it's black. Or even
oh.
it's marinate with the pickle in other regions like Sichuan province
Mm,
or other parts. So they
oh my
are
god.
kind of white, but they're spicy.
I'm hungry. I'm
Yeah.
hungry. Okay, I get it. Okay. But speaking of hunger, on top of your head, is there any dish that you particularly miss from your homeland
Uh,
that you like, "Oh, I would love to have some like right now." Give me
I
a
would
few.
say now like we have a very international setting in this world. Especially we're living in a country with multicultural, like, and also full of immigrants. It's convenient for you to find any flavor you're craving for if you're really doing the research and find the right places. I would
Mm.
say like you can definitely find most of the foods, up to 80% of the standards here. And
Well, where
I'm
you
really
are.
where I am, yes. So I'm really happy for it. So one of those things I really miss is the lake fishes or the river fishes.
Okay.
Because I think here in the North Americans, not many people consume the freshwater products as we consume in China. And maybe I do hear like all different series, like people have different species of like fishes here, and also the environment are different. So they tend to be much larger because their nutrition is like maybe better here. I don't know how to describe it, but they will have like a larger size and different flavor as well. So that's why
Mm.
people don't consume it as often here, and people tend to just consume the seafood, which is much better and much easier to get with better quality, which I totally understand. But sometimes you just miss the flavor of those freshwater fishes from China and from my hometown, especially. You feel like, oh my god, I
Okay.
just really miss that. Yeah,
Fish. Freshwater fish.
yeah.
When you say
So
that,
it's
my head goes to tilapia.
yeah, it's tilapia. Like the tilapia here are so different com-
Okay.
compared to the tilapia you get from Asia. Like even
Oh.
in some supermarkets, you can buy the tilapia, and it's definitely the same species. It's called Asian tilapia, and I know it's becoming a problem for many of the regions because it's the ecosystem thing. They don't have the natural predators to counter their populations, whatever. So it become a problem. But they are different here because their environments are different. The food they eat are different, and the size are
Mm.
different. So they don't taste the same.
Okay. To be honest, I do love a steamed fish, like a
Mhm.
full steam fish that is fresh, freshly caught, freshly prepared. With like steam it for about 8 to 12 minutes, and then pour some ginger and onion on top, and then you glaze it with hot oil on top, and then you add in some sweet soy sauce on the plate, and then you just eat it. Oh my god.
Mhm.
Oh my god.
Yeah, that's a very classic Canton style cooking. I really like it. Yeah.
I think what I really miss, and I don't think I can have it in North America, I don't think. There's a few dishes. The first one is probably snake. Like
Oh my
hot pot
god.
snake
Oh
and
my
stir
god.
fry snake. Um I don't yeah, the last time I had it was probably, I don't remember, probably immigrating away from China. I don't know. Anyways, it's really, really good. For those who haven't had it, I would
Oh,
highly
yeah.
recommend it. It's really yummy.
By the way, like for the audience, snake is also a rare dish in China. It's not like some everyday food you can see. I think,
Fair, fair.
yeah, I think the last time I eat snake is back to my when I was 10 or 8 as well. So it's a long time ago. Yeah.
Is it? Do you know if people still eat it?
Yeah, I know people still eat it. In some regions specifically, I feel like it's more closer to Canton. It will be more popular in this
I
area.
I think if I were to go back to China, that is probably something I would seriously ask for.
Yeah, I agree. They are amazing. So delicious.
um the other one is, I mean, I guess that you can have it in North America, is clay pot rice.
Oh, clay pot
With
rice.
like in like any type of ingredients. It could be like yellow eel, it could be frog, it could be
Ah, I see.
preserved meats like pork sausages and stuff like that too. There's another one. It's beef intestines, or like just organs, like mixed organs. It's also very Cantonese and very wild. People might think this is disgusting, but these type of foods was
It's amazing.
necessary back in the day when food was scarce, right? When there's not a lot of options for just eating the meat part of an animal itself. So there had to be certain ways for us to like not waste the animal product. So the entire cow would, be processed for like meat, and then there's the intestines and the organs would also be processed for food as well. And all of it is probably very accessible throughout Asia, and it's not just Chinese food.
Yeah,
One
I agree.
thing for sure though, I will go on to record right now that I consciously do not think that I have ever had dog meat.
Yeah. I knew you were going to this territory. So
What? I had to say it. I had to say it. I say
yeah, I feel like those food cultures are very shared. It's not only to China, it's more like to the whole like Eastern Asia at least. So the beef intestines you mentioned is actually a very popular dish in the Korean barbecue and also in Korea like hot pot as well. So
like beef
I
tongue as well.
yeah, beef tongues and also in Japanese food and a lot of the cultures we have here. And also I really want to mention is that the organs are pretty much more popular from the European dishes as well. So I do feel like it's more like a preference for North American people. I'm not
Oh
sure.
my
I'm
god.
not.
No, 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 no. Hold on, hold on. I've got stories. Okay, North American people are very picky eaters. They're just like, I don't want bones in my chicken. In a Chinese restaurant sometimes. I'm just like, do you know that chickens have bones? Like they come in bones, right? Like they actually have to have bones to be alive and then to be a chicken. But hey, all the power to you guys if you enjoy convenience over
Mhm.
the experience, I guess. I have actually met a few people who are Asians and they were like, "No, I don't like bones in my
Yeah,
meat."
yeah,
I was like, "Wait, what? Why?" And they're like, "Yeah, I don't want to have the effort to take out the bone from my meat." I was like,
yeah.
"Interesting. Interesting." I didn't even realize it was an effort thing. Do you know what I mean? Like
Oh,
for
I
them it's
see.
an
I see
effort
what you mean.
thing. For me it's more of a taste thing.
For
It
me,
adds more flavor.
I can relate to them because sometimes I'm the person who will think about efforts. So in my hometown, we have those small, like freshwater shrimps. They're so small, so tiny, so they can be half
Oh,
length of a finger. So they're really small. It's very unlike the ones we see here in
like
the
big
Western
prawns.
market and the big prawns, like the prawn cocktails size.
Oh,
You will see
okay.
they're really
Mm,
delicious.
mm.
But I just prefer someone will
All the
peel the
work for
shells
you.
for, yeah, do all the works for me. Because my family have a very special skill. They can have a whole shrimp in their mouths and they just do the work without using their hands.
That's
That's a
talent, like tongue talent.
I don't know, maybe tongue, teeth, whatever. I don't know how they did it, but it's amazing. They're like a automatic food processor or whatever. They're like a machine.
Since you're talking about your mom, I will talk about mine. I
Yeah.
remember when I was a kid and we love having fish. And there's this one particular fish that has like an extra 2 layers of bones in it for some reason.
Hmm.
And we would steam the fish and my mom would always be like, "Oh, be careful of the bones." And she would just give me like a piece and then I'm fine with picking out the bone and then like eating the meat, right?
Hmm.
But it's really funny because she loves eating fish, but I just remember this vivid image of this happens a few times where she
Hmm.
eats this piece of fish and then this bone is stuck in her throat
Oh, I have the same experiences.
and
Yeah.
she's like makes the sound that's just like dying. And then we would
Yeah.
have like this big ass tongue. like
Yeah.
huge, probably
Yeah.
like a size of the length of like a forearm, and to like go in there and like pick it out, or we would just tell it, okay, just take a huge bite of white rice and just don't chew and swallow it, and just swallow the bone in.
Yeah.
But usually we try to pick it out. Yeah, it's really
Yeah.
funny. So be careful eating fish, and if there's a lot of bones in it, you don't want to choke.
It's actually pretty common. Oh my god,
Not for me.
it sounds dangerous. It sounds dangerous. So I do remember the exactly same thing. Like I used the rice to try to unstuck the bones in my throat, and I later checked it's pretty dangerous. So the doctor always recommend you to pick it up instead of like trying to swallowing. But that's something we always do as a traditional method.
Do you eat the eyes?
Yeah, I want. Do you eat the head and eyes?
I don't eat the head. I only eat the eyes, and then I give the head to my mom or my parents.
Fair enough. I think I eat both.
I don't know how to eat the head.
It's
There's too many bones. I'm just like, there's nothing on here. Like, there's nothing for me to pick out. But for them, they're like, oh, I like to
yeah,
suck
have
on the
the
sauces or
flavor.
something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, okay, you do you. But then again, the eye doesn't taste like anything, so I don't know why I go for it all the time. Because I guess there's only two piece,
Mhm.
and when there's only a special part of an animal that you have to like give to somebody, then I'm always the one that usually gets it because I'm usually the only kid around and who would eat it. Maybe that's why. And if you're
Mhm.
disgusted by this, you can just, press next.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like those parts, like the head and eyes, are always reserved for someone special. And they say like if you eat the fish head and eyes, you can become smarter and you can gain the
Or see
wisdom.
better.
Yeah, that's something like this. And so they always serve for the children.
They're
But
all lies.
yeah, I don't think there's any scientific proofs of that. And instead, I think science is showing that those parts tend to be the areas where the fish accumulate the toxins and all the stuff they have. So it's probably a bad idea for children to eat them anyways.
Mm,
But I eat a lot of them and I enjoy the experience growing up. I feel
yeah.
like okay, I'm become smarter after eating this. So it's more like a self motivation or inspirational like experience where you feel like
Mm,
okay, I'm being treated special and they have a great expectations on you. They want you to become like smarter and be more capable, and so I think those are great wishes from the family.
I have two questions. What is your opinion about eating different types of animals outside of the norm? So, like, not chicken,
Mm,
not beef, not pork,
yeah,
not turkey. You know what I mean? Different
it's
things.
it's definitely one of the most challenging questions. I have thought about this in the past, and I don't feel like I have a perfect answer. But of course, I'm definitely aligned with the modern morality values now. Personally, I haven't eaten a dog or cat or whatever before. But when I was a child, it's not necessarily a conscious choice. It's more like my zodiac symbol is dog, so I tend to not eat myself. And also, it's not a dish that
Oops.
we see every day. It's actually a very rare dish. You only go to special places to get, and I don't see many people around me eat them. So I only know like one or two people are doing this in the regular basis or even like try this before. So it's not really a high ratio, but I'm just saying like it's definitely part of our culture for sure and also part of many Eastern Asian cultures. I think Korea had the same culture. The dog meat has been a very like valuable food in their culture, and I think they recently banned it, which is good, but it has been there for a long time. Back to the question, I just want to say that I thought about regarding like what's the boundaries. So personally, I definitely don't want to eat a pet. I don't want to eat anything that I feel like emotionally related. But there's another layer of complexity here is that do you know pigs are very smart? They're very intelligent.
Of course. Yeah.
They're like one of the smartest animals in the world, but we consume them every
Yeah.
day, right? And also, if you really live in a farm or in a ranch, because I have seen some documentary recently, and you can find some famous ones online for sure. It's very easy to have those emotional connections with the animals because
For
they will
sure.
respond to you and they will be like, "Oh, I want to interact with you. I feed you and I see you growing up." So I don't really have a perfect answer. That's why I have thought about if I really want to go vegan entirely to avoid all of them.
Right.
I think that's one of the arguments that people are putting there. I feel like that's a strong proof. You can definitely be a vegan. I totally respect people who, want to stand for their values and trying to define who they are. And they definitely have a choice and my respect for that. But at the same time, our biology is not designed for pure vegan diet. It's more like a trade-off you want to choose from. And also there's many arguments saying like even you are doing the pure vegan diet, you didn't consume any like meat product for sure. But the food industry in the world now doesn't really necessarily support this whole argument or support this whole like value you are insisting for. For example, I heard arguments I cannot verify is true or not, but that in order to grow the avocados in patch, what they did is actually they sacrifice so many like insects and utilize them to finish the process and they will be killed afterwards. So we're talking about like so many lives. If you care about life, if you care about the meat.
I
And
guess like if you're consuming like one product, like it affects the ecosystem in a way.
yeah, and also if you think deeper, if you're a pet owner, like I'm a pet owner now, I own a dog now. It's a big dog. It's a German Shepherd, so he is amazing. He
Yummy.
accompanies me. No, I. All right, all right. So, okay, so he's in my family. He accompanies me and he makes me joys and everything. But if you look at all those products that designed for pets, there's
Hmm.
so many like meat products and
Yeah.
you cannot convert your dog to be vegan as well or your pets, like
Watch
it's
me.
like like you have so many like bones, you have so many random animals or even some organs, like it's part of the food industry they're putting there. So if
Hmm.
you want to enjoy the company of the dogs and pets and you're saying like, oh, they are my family, I don't want to eat them, that's for sure. I will never eat a pet for sure. But from the logical point, you are feeding your pets by killing other animals.
Fair enough.
So yes, all I'm just saying, like I feel like there's no perfect answer for this one. We're definitely trying to be respectful and we're trying to be more sensible to make sure that we're not offending anyone, we're not creating any hard feelings. But I do feel like the whole food industry is very complicated and I don't see a good solution of it. For example, if you have a large production of the chicken, they actually lock the chicken in a small cells
Hmm.
and they don't get to go anywhere. And they just lock in a small cells for 14 days or 21 days and they got killed afterwards. So they never have a
Yeah, it's really
life
sad.
in the large production scale. And also I heard some of stories that they tend to only keep the female chicken. I think it's for like egging and all those like different, like productions, whatever. So
Mhm.
all the infant male chicken, after their birth, they're actually immediately sent to being crushed to become a pet
Fun.
food or whatever. So, I mean,
We're
I
disgusting.
I don't know. I think that's part of pondering. So that's why I say I
Mhm.
don't have a perfect answer. Is that I've
Well,
been thinking about this for a while, and I guess I'm just speaking out loud and to share my confusions here.
when I think about this question about eating alternative foods outside of the norm of chicken, pork, and beef, I think about what are the other alternatives that we can potentially eat outside of these options, especially maybe within North America's comfort, right? I think there are certain people who are a little bit more open to the idea of other types of meat. For example, lamb,
Mhm.
um, bison, or I guess in Chinese food restaurants, like you would sometimes see
Duck.
pigeon,
Oh, pigeon. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
duck,
And
duck,
duck is more popular in
quail,
Chinese setting, and even goose.
goose, quails,
Mhm.
and like those could be potential different options. And I think in my mind, when I think about different options, there's different tiers, right? There's tiers that I just wouldn't touch, such as
Mhm.
cats, dogs, like anything
Yeah.
pet related. And
Mhm.
then there are ones that are just like I just don't care for. And then there's ones that are just cruel and just probably not necessary. So like shark fin and
Oh.
do you know what I
Do you mind to explain to the audience regarding the shark fin part? I think it would be a new knowledge for many people. Yeah.
Yeah, so before I get into that, so like there's different tiers. So for me
Mhm.
it'll be like okay, pigeon, quail, bison or deer meat would be an alternative food to have. And I think to have that open-mindedness to have those different types of food available to you allows for that demand in the industry to spread out a little bit more. And I personally think that's a good thing. um I guess there's still like pick and choose like which kind of meat you want and don't want to have, right? But in regard to shark fin, I guess that's kind of like the next question that leads to it. There's certain types of food that I just don't necessarily care for, but
Mhm.
it is really really considered an like luxury item
Oh,
in
yeah.
at least in Chinese food industry. So
Mhm.
shark fin would be one of them. And the only time we really ever have them is potentially ceremonial times and when there's a celebration of something. So, like weddings, or if you're just rich and you just want to eat it all the time. But the terrible thing about eating shark fin, which I'm pretty sure it's banned now, is that
It's
the way that
banned
they
now. Yeah.
the way they hunt for sharks is they basically fish the shark, they cut off their fins, and then they throw them back into the ocean.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is really fucking sad.
Yeah.
And I don't know, like you do see them being sold in stores, but at the same time, like I understand it came from a tradition that was it's because how do I call it? It's a animal that is quite beastly. Does that make sense? Like when you're having something like that,
Oh.
it's quite like
Oh, I never seen. Oh, that makes sense. That totally makes sense. Yeah, yeah,
right? But there's other ones that just doesn't make sense, like sea cucumber. I'm like, that's
yeah.
I don't care for that.
Yeah.
You
So
ever
I
had it?
agree with you. So now I see what this coming from. I know that Chinese people like to eat, shark fangs, even tiger bones, or even like bear pawns. Like
Right.
those really aggressive, wildlife. So I never knew why. I never knew why. By the way, all three of them are being banned now in China, like a long time ago.
Black
But
market
now,
though. There is black
yeah,
market
yeah, there's black market in the world for sure,
everything.
everywhere, everywhere. Yeah, yeah. Now I kind of understand, like because people want to see like they are aggressive animals. They're probably a symbol of status or power.
Yeah,
Like you can overcome all those, like you are stronger. It's more like
masculinity.
masculinity stuff. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I think it's more of yeah, I guess it's kind of like status, power, and you're kind of like tame the beast and like you're eating it and all that stuff. It's
Yeah.
kind of like, oh, I'm wearing the fur of a bear or something like
Yeah,
that.
exactly. I think it also comes to the scarcity as well. I think it's really
Mm,
rare for people to get access to those foods. That's why if you look at those menus from those like ancient royal family menus, you can see those dishes and be like, okay, so we are the only ones who can access to those materials, so you don't
yeah.
get the same like options as a normal person. So,
Yes. Yes.
but things
I think
change.
things have changed. I think I just haven't had those type of foods for a very long time. I couldn't say that I necessarily miss them. But the thing is, like, if they do present in front of you, are you not going to eat it in a banquet? You're not going to eat it
I I am. I'm going to eat them. Um,
because it's already made.
yeah, here's my reasoning. So I know it's not a popular opinion, but I'm
Yeah.
trying to say like my moral choice probably will choose not to eat certain things, but at the same time, if that's illegal, I have the rights to eat them.
Hmm.
So what I mean is that in Canada here or in North America, we actually have a hunting culture here. So you can grab a gun and to hunt animals, and you can keep the parts for your own consumptions.
Mm.
So you cannot sell those for commercial purposes because obviously it cannot be turned to a business to interrupt the ecosystem. And they have a
Yeah.
very strict system like you need to get all the license for the guns and also for hunting. And also you have a very limited quotas per year. So it's a system to make sure it's a fair game. But in the end, you can have access to those foods because you can hunt bears here. So if you're really craving for a bear prawn or
Really?
whatever, yeah, you can. So you can go there and hunt for bear and eat yourself. It's possible. And I think many people
That's
are
a lot
doing
of
this.
bear meat. That's a lot of meat.
Yeah. So I think my point here is that the morality of food is very subjective in a way. As I said, trying to be like more conscious and trying to be more like caring for and a respect for people's feelings and emotions and everything. I want to be like sensible as well. But at the same time, I just don't feel like there's a really fine line here unless it's legal like definitions. So, for example, now the bears is banned in China. You cannot eat a bear, but in Canada, you can eat a bear if you hunt it. So that's a legal
Interesting. Okay.
definition for me. But sometimes I would just skip certain dishes I may not like the shark fin. I have had it when I was really young because it was a popular dish back then. It's a different experiences. It's a status you want to show off if you really care that we have access to those luxury foods to show
Mm.
status. But in the
Hmm.
tasting itself, I don't really think they are so special.
Yeah.
You can definitely find similar ones in like texture, similar flavors, and from other animals or different like cooking styles. You can have definitely have
If
similar
not
things.
better.
Yeah, if not better. And I do believe your everyday dish it can be definitely much better.
Hmm.
And also it changes. It's like the luxury word. Like a bologna used to be so pricey while I
Is it
was
still
young.
not? Is it not now?
It's become so affordable now, like especially for the smaller ones because they changed
Oh,
the farming technology and all stuff. So it become really available at the moment. The
okay.
same thing goes to salmon. So salmon used to be a luxury food in China, but now it become much more affordable because there's more productions and more ways to raise them in the market.
Mm.
So
I don't know how we got here.
long journey of the food culture
Oops.
discussions, whatever. We're definitely off the reel.
I think it's a great conversation to have, just like, steering from cultural diversity into merging with a different culture and trying to survive in a foreign land, and then creating
Yeah.
new dishes that is based on your background, and then trying to implement ways to like create a community through food. I think is very important.
Yeah.
And maybe that's another conversation for another time when we can talk about food and health,
Yeah, definitely.
implementing into culture. And I think with that, thank you so much for tuning into Pondering Pandas. If you like this episode, please share it with your friends. Leave us a comment, give us a 5-star review if you could. This would really help us grow. We appreciate you pondering with us today. We'll see you next time. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.